Hello, I'm Tamar Hermes, and welcome to the Wealth Warrior Summit. Experts are sharing how to save money, grow wealth, and reach financial freedom. I'm here today with Jenn Scalia, and Jenn is a visibility and mindset strategist for coaches and online entrepreneurs who want to increase awareness for their brand so they can get more clients and make more money. And part of what she does, and she's been in many publications talking about this, is having entrepreneurs go from six figures and beyond. So reach that six figures and beyond. Welcome, Jenn.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's great. I love to talk money and wealth and explore this topic with successful entrepreneurs and wealth makers.
Awesome.
So I love to start with this first question, which is, what is your basic philosophy around creating wealth?
Ooh, that is a really good one. And I feel like there's so many, but the first thing that just popped into my head was like, it's mindset over metrics. I think that, in the online marketing world, people focus so much on like numbers and stats and, tactics and strategies. And I really feel like the wealth comes from within. Like there's that internal thing that guides you to become someone who is truly wealthy, not just on the outside, but, in all areas of their lives.
Right. I love that. Yeah. I've been hearing that theme about, mind, body, spirit, or your mindset, along with the piece of wanting to make money, but opening that channel. Yeah. And I love, you talk about this, create wealth from within a lot. And I'd love for you to elaborate a little bit more about how you use that in your work and how you help people.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, just like I mentioned, like it's the mindset over metrics. I think, when I first started, I was really focused on the strategies, and these are the actual things that you have to do in order to create wealth, in order to make money. But I realized, not just, with my own business and how I grew as an entrepreneur, but working with thousands of clients, that like, there was something so much more, because someone could have the same strategies and the same tactics and do the same external things as the next person, but the results would be different. And what it was who they were to the core, who they were really as a person, how they presented themselves, how they showed up, how they thought about themselves, the beliefs that they had around themselves and money and wealth and all of that stuff. And it's funny because I actually just came up with like a way to talk about this, because sometimes it seems a little elusive, like I don't really get it, like just tell me the strategies, how do I make money? But the way that, I kind of can describe it now is like, making money like requires, a driver and a car, right? So a car would be like the strategies and the things that you actually have to, do to get from point A to point B. But if the driver isn't skilled in how to drive, how to navigate turns, how to, maneuver, then the car is not really going to get where it needs to go, right? So the mindset piece and the internal piece is that driver, and getting that driver up to a place where they can drive that car successfully to that final destination.
That's great. Yeah. What are a few things for anyone that's watching? Because obviously, no matter where we're at, we always are, even if we're at 500,000, we want to get to that million. We're still going through those pieces of like next level being. So what are a few things that we can do really at any level to sort of master that within piece?
Yeah, I think really we have to get clarity, and clarity is one of those things, again, that feels intangible, but I feel like it's a catalyst for really getting everything that you want. A lot of people, like say that they want something or have a vision or have a goal, but they don't really understand why they have that, right? So if they are, let's say somebody's at 100K and they want to get to 500K. If somebody's at 500K, they want to get to a million, like, but why? Right? Like, what is the actual reason? Is it because you want to prove something to someone? Is it because you want to start investing in charities? Is it because you want to save for your retirement? So understanding like the reasons behind those goals, I think is really, really important, because if not, then we're going to end up staying the same. We're going to have the goal, but never actually reach the goal because there's no purpose behind it. Right. There's no reason for the change. There's no reason for us to increase our wealth. So really definitely comes down to clarity on what you want, and why you want it and what you're going to do with that money once you get it.
Right. And that is the within piece too, because the within is like, what's your why? That is you, right? And then is there something that you can do in terms of um, bringing because obviously some of this with the mindset has to do with like the esteem or like how you see yourself. Is there something that you feel like really pivoted you into another place in terms of how you showed up?
Yeah, I mean, I think also the other thing is like understanding and recognizing the stories that we currently have around money and around wealth. I know for me, when I made like a huge shift in income, it was because I was able to understand and know like the stories that were holding me back. So, these are things that probably you're going to go back to like your childhood and things that your parents told you about money, or just beliefs that you have that you don't even realize you have until you get to a stuck point, or you get to a point where it's like, okay, my income isn't really increasing, or, I feel like I'm doing all the right things, but things aren't really happening because there's these internal stories that are actually blocking us from achieving that wealth. So for example, like if your parents or your father was always like, rich people are bad, having a lot of money isn't good, right? You have this like program that like it's not good. So you may think something like, well, if I get really rich, my dad's not going to like me anymore. Right. My dad's not going to love me anymore, right? So I think it's really important for us to understand the stories and the beliefs that we currently have around money, also around having it all. I feel like that's another big thing that comes up a lot, is like people will feel like, okay, yeah, I may be able to have money, I may be able to have wealth, but that's going to be at the sacrifice of my health, or that's going to be at the sacrifice of my relationships, right? So also understanding like that you can have it all, but what are the stories that are preventing you from achieving that?
Right. Yeah, that's great. Now, I love that you have this no nonsense approach. Like, stop spinning your wheels. Like, let's get going here. So, how do you stop long enough to get into alignment with what you want and get started on daily habits and actions to get the desires that you want to happen?
Yeah, and I think basically it just comes down to a decision, right? Like, how do you want to show up? And making that decision daily, it's something that I feel like every day I have to commit. Every day I have to commit to being that next level person. Every day I have to commit to the wealth that I desire. Every day I have to do this because, like we were talking about the programs and the stories and the beliefs, that's all. I mean, that's been there for years, for decades. So we don't really have to think about that stuff. That's just our natural way of being. So if we want to change, if we want to get unstuck, if we want to move to that next level, we really have to commit to doing something different than we have been doing. And I believe it is a daily commitment. It's a daily like decision that these are the actions that I'm going to take. These are the new beliefs that I want to believe. This is how I'm going to show up. That's actually going to move the needle forward.
Great. Now, you also one of the things that you talk a lot about is consistency. And I love the way you say, like, every day when you show up, every day you recommit, every day you recommit. Are there certain habits that you work on that you feel like these things are not negotiable in terms of being consistent in order to move forward?
Absolutely. So the first thing is definitely the internal work, which we've touched on a lot. For me, it's a daily journaling practice. For other people, it might be meditation or exercise or yoga or visualization. Like everyone kind of has their own thing, but I say, like, for me, it's journaling, but it has to be daily. So one of the things that I find is that people will do it a little bit, do it a couple times a week. They might do it and they're like, okay, cool, this works, but then they stop doing it. So it's like, that internal work is always a non-negotiable, whatever that looks like for you, whether that is, like I said, meditation, writing, anything like that, that's going to get you into that space of being high vibe, of getting really clear on your desires, tapping into that, looking at like, what do I actually want my life to look like? And doing that every day. So for me, that's number one. Number two is definitely just creation, as far as like messaging. So what is my message to the world? What is the thing that I need to share, right? And making a commitment to share that in some way every day. And when I say every day, it literally doesn't have to be every day. Like if you are sick, or if you're on vacation, or you just want to take a day off, that's totally fine. But if you're consistent with it, like people aren't even going to notice that you took a day off, right? But what I mean by consistent is like not just once a week, right? Not just a couple times a month, not just when you feel like it, right? But really making a commitment to tap into your message and share that with the world. And I really feel like if you work on the internal piece and then you work on the external piece, which is like, here's my message, here's how I can help you, here's what I have to share with the world, that's when you're going to start calling in the people who are going to want to pay you, right? So that you can start to create that wealth.
Yeah, I love that. I really love that second piece. How long, just for people that are thinking, you know what, I really want to start journaling, or maybe they journal, but they don't do it consistently.
Yeah.
So one of the things you're saying is do it, whatever practice you do, try to do it almost every day. Obviously, if you're sick or something comes up, how long do you journal? Just so people have an idea, like, because they might be thinking, well, do I, can I write an affirmation and just say, I'm great, and then go off to work? Or, just so they get an idea,
yeah,
like
definitely longer than that. And one of the things I do too is like I challenge people. I'm like, do it for at least 7 days straight. Do it for at least 7 days straight. And then if you don't see any changes at all, like in how you're feeling, in different things that are happening to you, then you can call me, you can reach out to me and tell me I'm wrong. I've never had anybody do that, right? So either they're just not doing the 7 days or it's actually working. So I always challenge people, do it for at least 7 days. In the beginning, I really don't feel like you have to spend a whole lot of time. I would say maybe 15, 20 minutes. Make it a priority. Look at it like, don't look at it as like, this is something I have to do or I'm forced to do, but like, this is something I'm doing for myself. This is something this is a gift that I'm giving to myself to tap in, to really understand what my desires are, to get clear on what those are, and how I'm going to make that happen. I really feel like for me anyway, that journaling is a catalyst for so many other things. So I do my journaling first, and then from there is like when the ideas start to come. And, I'll even say like, today I want to be like an open vessel for creative ideas, and knowing how I'm going to monetize that. And then next thing you know, it's like, oh my God, I have this idea. So look at it also as like something that's going to be a trigger for you to do that next step, which is the messaging, right? And letting people know what you're all about and how you can help them. But yeah, I would say 15 to 20 minutes to start. Now I go a little bit deeper. It's a little bit more intricate the way that I do it. So I'm probably doing it more like between like 40 minutes a day, and sometimes an hour. Really depends on where I'm at, what I'm looking to achieve with the journaling session, and whatever needs to come out. And I always tell people like, do it until it feels done.
I love that, because that's one of the things that I think, sometimes, like with Julia Cameron, in the artist way, she talks about writing your morning pages and do it. She says, write 2 pages. I don't care what you write. I don't care if it's just like blah, 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 blah for 2 pages, but write it. So I love the fact that you're saying take 15 to 20 minutes and then look at when it's done. Don't just like write for 3 minutes and be like, I'm done, because you don't get into that space of the creativity and the power and the ideas.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love that too. I love that, like getting things out. So if you're somebody who just like, you can't get into it. Like I hear this a lot. Like I can't journal because I'm thinking about what I need to do for the day. I'm thinking about my to-do list. I'm thinking about my kids. I'm thinking about money. I'm thinking about whatever. Like I always tell people, well, then do like a 5-minute brain dump, and just get everything that's in your head, just get it out. Right. And then step into your journaling where, the way that I journal really is more like future pacing. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm painting a picture of exactly what I want my life to look like, how I feel, how I dress, the people that I'm around, the decisions that I make, the amount of money that's in my bank account, the clients that I'm working with, the opportunities that I'm getting, and really just it's essentially like a written visualization of here's what I want my life to look like. But you can't really get to that space, like you're saying, when you have all of these things kind of going on in your head. So definitely recommend getting the brain dump out first and then focusing in on your journaling and tapping into what you really want.
And sometimes when you're journaling, will you also turn it into will you maybe make a blog while you're journaling, or no, that's not the time for that kind of thing?
No, I think that's when the ideas come. For sure. Yeah. There might be a line in my journal where I'm like, oh, that's really good. I need to share that with people, or I need to share that, with my audience, or I need to share that with my clients. I actually did that the other day. I was writing in my journal and I just wrote something and I shared it with my audience. And I was like, this just came up during my journaling session. it resonated with a lot of people. So it's like, allow that to be a place where those ideas can come to you.
Right. And I love that. And like bringing it back to money is that, you can be focusing, if you want to make more money, you can be focusing on your why and writing all that and diving into like what it looks like, what your life looks like, to visualize that. And that's what I'm hearing. And I really love the idea of the consistency, because I do think that is one of the things that a lot of us give up on, because we think it's not working. We don't give it enough time to really see. I mean, that's something I have to tell my son too. Like, just try it on. My 13-year-old, I'm always like, just see if it, do it 1 day, 2 days, see if you like it. So, I love that you have a ton of, hacks. You call them hacks, that are simple, practical, effective shortcuts to grow business and make more money. So how can people that are watching, how can they get to their next level of business and income, like now? What can they do? Like, so they're journaling, they have their ideas, they're putting it out. What else needs to happen to make it actually?
One of the things that I do is, so actually two things. Number one is like also understanding your relationship with time. So a lot of people think, if I want to make a lot of money, it's going to take a lot of time, right? Or, if we're on a healing journey and maybe I've been suffering with this, trauma for many years, it's going to take a long time to heal. So understanding that things don't have to take a long time, you just have to make that decision, right? And that you can essentially like make things happen a lot faster than the next person, because the next person believes this is going to take a long time. So if I want to lose 20 pounds, and I go to a fitness instructor, they're like, okay, you may be able to achieve this in, 6 to 9 months. And I'm like, no, I want to lose 20 pounds in 30 days, which I've actually done before, because I put that belief in myself of like, it doesn't have to take a long time. We believe that things are bigger or longer, that it takes longer, but it actually doesn't. So that's number one, is just understanding the relationship with time and knowing that things don't actually have to take a long time just because they're bigger or more money. You can have quantum leaps, right? But you have to also believe in that. Some people don't believe in that. Some people like to take baby steps. So if you're a baby steps person, that's totally fine. Just know that like you're going to incrementally increase your wealth or increase your income versus, someone who really believes that like I can jump from, what I did in my first year was I made about 35,000 in my first year. And then in the second year, I did 535,000. So I made this like huge epic leap, right? Because I believed that I could. Right. And really it all just boils down to like, what do you actually believe? It's one thing to think and it's one thing to journal about, but what is actually your internal belief, right? And that's what you need to tap into. So time is the first thing. The second thing is really stepping into that person now. So this is something that a lot of people make the mistake of. They see maybe who they want to be, who they desire to be, the money that they want to have, but they still operate from who they are. So the outcome is going to be who they are, right? So if I, think, wow, as somebody who's already making, $250,000 a year, I'd be investing X amount of dollars into real estate. But you're making the decision of like, well, I can't do that right now. Like I can't do that until I'm making $250,000 a year. So that one, it's a little bit tricky because it does actually require money, but making decisions as that next level version of yourself, surrounding yourself around the people who you would surround yourself if you were already at that next level. So really thinking about like even the little intricacies of your day to day, like, would I be doing this? Is this how I would be acting? Are these the boundaries that I would be setting? Are these the clients that I would be working with if I was already there? And trying to close that gap as much as possible. That's really what's going to take you there, is by acting as if you're already there. Hard concept, I think, for a lot of people to kind of wrap their heads around. But if you think about it, it's like, if I want to be thin and fit and athletic, well, I'm not going to be sitting on the couch eating bonbons all day, right? I'm going to be going to the gym. I'm going to be drinking a lot of water. I'm going to be eating clean, so I can't create something new with the same habits that I have if I'm not happy with, where I'm at right now.
I love that. Those are two, I think those were, I almost got chills because I was like, yes, like just the way that you express that. I hope that everybody took that in, because I got it right away. I mean, it really is that whole Parkinson's law idea, that one with the time, which is that, I think a lot of us, there's a fine line between, you know what, this is going to take this amount of time. We have it in our minds. Like most people, it takes this amount of time to scale the 6 figures. Most people, to get to $1 million, it takes this amount of time. Like if I want properties, it takes this amount. And you're right, we hold that. But then if we use the Parkinson's law idea of like, if you give yourself 10 weeks to do a project versus 2 weeks, you're going to get it done in 2 weeks. So I absolutely love that. And I love the other idea too about seeing it as it's already done. Like see that person you want to be. Like you saw yourself 30 pounds less and you're like, I see myself, I see the outfits I'm wearing, I see the bikini on the beach, I see like, dancing around, I would be like, woo, whatever it is, like it's through those visualizations. Those are awesome. I love that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, you talked about, you're very honest about setbacks and where you started from. Now, once you started scaling, can you share just were there any setbacks that, I mean, obviously I'm sure there were, because we all have them, but I mean, I just always think it's so good to hear, because it sounds like, even though you're really honest about like, I'm doing all these things and even when we're in action doing it, it still feels like, well, Jenn did it, but can I do it? Like 35,000 to 500,000, So I'd love to hear like, what were things where you were like taken back, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah. I mean, and I think there's always going to be challenges. So I think that's just knowing that is the first step, right? Because if you think like, oh, as soon as I'm making this amount of money, everything's going to be great. Like you're just kind of fooling yourself. We have a business. There's so many different things that can happen, changes, shifts, you change, you grow, your team grows. Like, it doesn't get easier the more money you make necessarily. And I think that people have that in their mind. Like once I get into this, no, it's like what they say, new level, new devil, right? So it's like, okay, now I have to deal with, I'm responsible for a team. Now I'm responsible for, investing in paid advertising, which is maybe something I wasn't thinking about before. So there's always going to be new challenges. And I think just having an awareness around that and knowing that going into it is it's going to be a lot better for you mindset wise, and having, okay, that's just a blip, right? Like that's just part of the deal, right? If we want to be entrepreneurs, if we want to be business owners and be our own boss, everything's not going to be perfect. Also, like having support is so crucial, like whether it is actual people that you're hiring as mentors, whether it is friends and peers who are around you that you can be like, oh my gosh, this is happening, or this is the thought that's going through my head, or how do I do this? So crucial, right? Because if we put ourselves in a little bubble and try to navigate through the challenges ourselves, it's going to get really hard. So for me, making that big leap was like, it just happened. Like it literally just happened. So that following year, I felt like I was catching up. Like I was like, oh my gosh, I have to catch up from this like major leap. And then I started really shifting my business model. So that was one thing that I felt like was really challenging for me, because when I started, I was doing a lot of one-on-one coaching. I had a specific business model. And then I was like, okay, this isn't going to work for me. Like if I want to scale, if I want to grow my business, I can't just keep taking on more one-on-one clients. Like there's only a certain amount of time in the day. So for me, that was one of my biggest challenges and shifts, was like recognizing that I needed to also shift my business model and start working in groups, start doing more courses and DIY stuff, which was a lot less money than one-on-one coaching, so I had to reach more people.
Right.
I had to evolve and change with my business as far as team, like having people not do their jobs, having to hire people, having to fire people. Those are always also big challenges as well,
Right.
because, and one thing I would say about that is like, just remember that you are a business. I think when it comes to hiring and firing, we feel bad. We're like, oh, I don't want to talk to this person. I don't want to tell them they're doing something wrong. And it's like, you have to operate from that business mind, from that entrepreneur mind of like, if this person or this strategy or this thing isn't working for your business, you have to be strong enough to say, this isn't working. I need to get rid of it, or we need to change something in order for it to work. So really taking that, like, I think it's hard for people to step into that leadership role of commanding what they most desire in their business versus like being reactive to the things that are happening. Other things like failed launches. There's launches where I was like, gung ho, like totally all in it. And then I'm like, what happened? And this is actually where the wealth from within comes from, because then if I look back and I'm like, oh, well, maybe I wasn't really aligned with that offer, or, there were certain things about the launch that I wasn't really connected with or didn't really want to do. And then I've had my best launches where they weren't planned out. It was just like on a whim, like, hey, I want to do this thing. I want to launch this thing. And then, I got 50 people to sign up because I felt connected with it energetically. So, there's times where that's happened, where I haven't reached my goals or reached, a bit failed launch, I say in air quotes, because if we don't reach our goal, we automatically think we fail. Which is, I think, something that I've been talking about a lot lately, is detaching from the numbers. And knowing that just one little blip in your business, one bad month, one failed launch doesn't define you. Right. It doesn't mean anything, right? Because when you're at that level of wealth that you want, when you're making millions, if you want to make millions, if you're making hundreds of thousands of dollars, like no one's going to say, well, Jen, you had that failed launch in June of 2016. Like nobody's going to remember that, right? Like that's just a blip. It's just a thing, right? That happened. So definitely, for me, I had to overcome that of detaching myself and my worth to the numbers. And that actually made it easier to make more money because my energy was better. I was more high vibe than feeling like crap because I didn't reach my big goal.
Right. No, that's great. Now, let's talk a little bit about saving money. We all know the entrepreneurs that are making a ton of money and do not have any money. You talked a little, and, we wonder like what, like they have the ability to just drive and, have people come to them, make it, and then it's all gone. So there needs to be balance because obviously, that's no way to grow wealth. And if you're there, then you're always stressed trying to get the next launch or the next client in, and that's not a good feeling for the client either, because it's like this heavy desperation of getting them in. They don't want that energy bringing in. So how do you manage your savings, your investments, your taxes? Like, is there a way that you put it away? And I'd love to hear that, because I think that's something that all of us can benefit from.
I love that you're talking about this, because a lot of people don't. And it does get tricky, right? Because it's like, okay, I've made this much money, but I don't have any. The whole nother tangent is like, oh, well, what are your beliefs, right, around having the money, and why can't you hold on to money, and why does, you have a big month, but then you also have big bills, right? But I think for me, one of the very first things I did probably in the first year of my business was I read Profit First.
Right.
And so I immediately started paying myself, immediately separated money. I think a lot of people that I work with, a lot of people that I connect with, like it's all commingled, right? It's like, oh, I can't invest in this because I have to buy my kid a bike. And it's like, well, wait a minute. You should have your business account, your tax account, your savings account, your personal account, like it all needs to be separate. So that was one of the first things that I did. And I make sure, like, no matter what, I'm paying myself first. Even if that means, a less profit month, in my business, I'm paying myself first always. So that's number one. Taxes, I have a really good CPA. She is a bookkeeper, an accountant. I would highly recommend everyone to do that. And not try to do it on your own. That's a beast. But essentially, like, she does everything for me. And we actually pay our taxes monthly. So
right. I hear that a lot. I've been hearing that from several entrepreneurs. Either they meet quarterly, they meet monthly. That's, if anyone takes anything away from the Wealth Warrior Summit, that's huge, to really get on top of the taxes, because that could just do you in, and there's no reason for it. We all know, we live in the world, unless we're living in, another part of the world where that's not an issue, which we have other problems then. So I love that you are sharing that.
Super important. And the way that I kind of looked at it was like, okay, well, this is just an extra, this is just part of my expenses for the month. Is this tax that I have to pay every month, right? And it just makes it so much easier than at the end of the year, like, hey, you owe $25,000 or you owe $50,000, right? Then people are like, oh my God, right? But yeah, doing that, having a really good CPA, having a really good bookkeeper to keep you on track, definitely helps a lot with that. Like I said, I definitely have a separate account for my business and for my personal. I think that's super crucial.
Critical.
It's crucial because you have to know like what you can invest in your business, right?
Mhm.
And some people will just look at the money in the account and they're like, okay, I can invest that much. But it's like, well, what about all your expenses? What about all the things that you have to do, right? I also am a corporation. So I actually pay myself a paycheck every month. Well, every week I do. And so, I get a salary. So I'm not just kind of like dipping into my business account when I want something personal. It's like I'm getting a salary. And what's really cool about that too is like the salary that I chose to pay myself is twice as much as I need for my expenses. So now I have a, cushion there. I have every month, overflow that I can use for my investments and my savings and things like that.
Right, right. I love that. And just for anyone that doesn't know, with Profit First, Mike Michalowicz's book, it's a great system for just compartmentalizing. I've had 2 Profit First professionals on the summit to
Awesome.
share more about it, and it's great. And several of the entrepreneurs have shared that they use that system. Some people use other systems, or they use like their version of the system. But
Yeah.
whatever works is, I love that you're doing these things. And let's also, since you mentioned investments, I would love for you to share how you work that piece. Because let's face it, I mean, we're working. We either need cash flow, we need investments, we need our money to grow because we will have slower months. Or
Yep.
at some point, we may decide we want to take a couple months off, or we may decide we don't want to work anymore. And there's no way to do that if we're, most of us love what we do, so we want to work forever, but you never know. So you want to be, this is one of the key things I wanted people to take away from the summit is, thinking about growing your wealth. So I'd love for you to share what you do.
Yeah, definitely. And I know you have Garrett on the summit as well. I
I
love him. I absolutely love him. I've been following him for years. He's so smart. For me, most of my investments are real estate because I feel like real estate is a thing that's actually going to continue to grow that wealth. So investment properties, not my personal property, but investment properties that I am putting people in as renters, getting those checks every month. So that's been my main investment. I do have some smaller things that I'm investing in, but for me, I'm like, that's something that I could always invest in. Plus my boyfriend is a real estate agent. So we're kind of like building, like that's our big plan is like to build this real estate portfolio. So by the time we retire, or we want to stop working, that cash flow from the rent is actually paying all of our bills and our expenses.
Yeah, I am a huge fan of real estate. I have some stock experts on. I have Tom Zeeb sharing about buying wholesale properties,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
also really interesting. It's amazing because I always, as I'm buying real estate, I live in California, so I'm always thinking like, it'd be great to get a deal on this, like, I mean, we all want a good deal on it, let's face it, but California's like, everything's so high. So, but I love that. And, and it's great that you can share that, you take your money, you're buying real estate, you get rents. There's ways to like, there's a reason to save money. There's a reason not to just go and spend every single dime or reinvest every dollar into your business.
Yeah. Well, and if you keep your account separate, then, you have your business stuff where you can reinvest that, but then your profits, are going to you, and that's where you're able to invest in things. And, one little thing that I do want to say about that is that what I've noticed is that I used to have a hard time saving. Not when I was younger. When I was younger, I was like, I always saved because my dad just was always like, you have to save your money. You have to save your money. So I was like a big saver. But then like in my 20s and my early 30s, I was like, not that good of a saver. I was just like, oh, I have this money. I'm going to spend it, and I think for me, and this might resonate with some people, is like saving just wasn't exciting.
Right.
It's like,
It's
okay,
not
I'm
that
just gonna
sexy.
put this money in the bank for what? Like, I'm just gonna take this money and like put it under my mattress. Like, that's no fun, So what I did to kind of overcome that was like look at it differently. So it wasn't like I was saving. It was like I was investing in my future. I was putting, aside money for a trust for my son so that he has, so that I'm leaving him a legacy. So, are there like investing in real estate? Like, it's kind of like saving money, but I'm investing in something that's actual tangible. So if you feel like, saving is just not fun and it's not exciting, so you just want to spend, like, find different ways to spend that money in a way that is going to benefit you long term.
Yeah, that's so great. Yeah, because there isn't, a better feeling than being able to, I talk about that even in the welcome in the summit is like, what would it be like to just be able to send your kids to college? Like for me, that was a non-negotiable. I was like, I wanted the things that I didn't have, as I grew up. And that does involve that discipline. And again, that goes back to your why, right? Like why? Like it's hard. I know what you're saying. Like you want to get immediate gratification,
Yeah.
right? And so I love the way you're saying, like, find a way to kind of create it in a way that it feels like an immediate gratification.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Or that it feels like a gratification, just overall, maybe not immediate, but like, because it does seem like the more you can think about that vision with money, the more you can create the wealth that you want.
Exactly.
So I love that. Thank you for sharing all that. It's so valuable. Now, the majority of businesses, we still statistically don't, a lot of businesses don't fail. So what do you recommend and we've talked a lot about this, but I'm wondering if there's like a jewel that we can give where for entrepreneurs out there, like with a vision, maybe they're starting a business, or maybe they've been in the business for a couple of years, but maybe they haven't gotten from that 35,000 to the 535 yet. What do you recommend to them to have financial success?
I think it's really tapping into like your truest desires, but also your strengths. I think a lot of times like we are seeking something outside of ourselves, and so we end up over investing, spending money that we probably didn't have to spend, investing in, making bad choices as far as like what to invest in our business, because we're looking for something outside of ourselves. And I really feel like, just like the whole theme, wealth from within, it's like, you already have the skills and the talents. You already have the thing, and maybe you need some guidance, and a mentor can help you with that, or, peers or something like that. But like, just really understanding like what feels good for you, what feels in alignment for you as far as like how to do your business, I find has been like the catalyst for really just creating the business that is sustainable, but also that feels really good. Because if we're doing stuff that just other people say, like, this is going to work and that's going to work and you should invest in this and you should invest in that, but it doesn't feel aligned with what we're doing, it doesn't play to our strengths, it becomes hard. We get stressed out about it. We burn out. And that's one of the things that I have just really been, stepping into in the last couple of years, is like, what feels really good for me to do? What plays to my strengths? What's easy for me, right? And go like putting all in on what's easy for you versus trying to complicate it. I think we try to complicate things. We think like, again, oh, if I want to make millions of dollars, it's got to be complicated. It's got to be hard. It's got to take a long time. So tapping in and knowing that like, it actually doesn't have to be hard. We can find the thing that we're really, really good at, double down on that, get help in the areas that we're not good at. And that's how you're going to create that sustainability, but also not end up hating your business, which a lot of people end up, just.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. And I hear, like, what I see a lot is like people, will start a business and their heart's in it. And, obviously we're in coaching space. So we get a lot of people that want to help people and their heart's there, but then they're like, but I have to learn internet marketing. I've got to go give talks. I got to write emails. I got to, and I love what you're saying, like find what feels good to you. I love, there are several people that do this, but recently, like with Garrett Gunderson, he actually, when you email him, it says, my associate will be getting back to you, because emails aren't something that bring me joy. So I don't manage them, and I love that. It's just like, what? You don't manage your emails? It's like, no, I don't like that. I don't want, that's not my zone of genius and I don't like it. So if we can like stand up, and get out of some of that. I love what you're saying about like, do what feels good to you and own that. And
easy. what's easy for you? Do that, People,
Right.
I feel like people try to come up with something hard,
Yeah. Although I feel
What
like
can
it's
you do?
interesting because, like, for me, I'm naturally inclined to sales, but I love writing and creativity, although it's not always easy for me. And the reason is because sales is, you get the prize, you get the, the
Yeah.
win, the sale, the immediate gratification, whereas the writing is more of a longer piece. So
Yeah.
it's taken me some discipline. So that's like, that I'd love for you to share,
Mhm.
like, what do people do when they're in that predicament of like, I like this, but it's harder for me, but
Mhm.
because there's also that.
Well, it's kind of goes back to what we were saying before, like just practice it, right? Like with the journaling, like try it on, try it on. So just because something's not doesn't come as easily to you doesn't mean it's out of alignment. It doesn't mean it's necessarily hard. It just means you have to work at it a little bit, right? Now,
Mhm.
obviously, there's going to be certain tasks like tech and graphics and
Right.
all that funnels and all that stuff. It's like, okay, somebody else can go do that, right? But yeah, I mean, if you enjoy writing and the process just takes a little bit longer, like you're just like just do it, right? The more you do it, the easier it's going to get.
Exactly. So it's
And
like,
also like the responses. So maybe it's not an immediate sale, but you might get someone that's like, oh my gosh, I loved the message that you just put out. I love the email that you just wrote. And there's an instant gratification, right? And I think the
right.
other way to look at that is like, you're connecting, right? So I always talk about this thing called later money, which is like everybody wants that now money, right? And they're like, oh, this discovery call didn't go well, or this person said no, and I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't mean they're always going to say no. That doesn't mean that they don't want it later, right? So I always go for the later money as well, nurturing, creating those relationships, really getting people to understand, know, like, trust me, because then the sale later is going to be easier.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's beautiful. So yeah, so in addition to doing what you do like, stay in what you like, say what feels good to you, even if it's harder, but you
Mhm.
like maybe you really do like social media and you
Yeah,
really do want to do that. So maybe you spend time on that, but you don't spend time on some other things. But
exactly. I think there's
I
a
love,
balance.
right, and I love the way you make it like you make it manageable. You're right, because I think that part of the reason what I'm hearing is your idea that businesses don't do well. Unfortunately, like some of them don't end up surviving because they're taking on too much and they're not being true to themselves. They're not looking within.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's great. Now, I always look to end on this question, which is, what does financial freedom mean for you?
Oh, I love that. And I love that word. I actually have a podcast and I use those words in my podcast.
Oh, that's great.
Financially free. Yeah, I think everyone wants to be financially free. I mean, who doesn't want that, right? I think for me, it's like not having to stress about money, to know that you're taken care of, safe, secure. That just like you were saying, if I get sick tomorrow, like last year I was in a car accident, something that I didn't know was going to happen, right? Can I take that time off without stressing out, without worrying, without losing money, without feeling like my business is going to collapse? So just having kind of that nest egg and knowing that no matter what happens, no matter what changes, no matter what shifts, no matter what happens in life that's unexpected, I'm fully taken care of. And for me, it's I'm fully taken care of, and so is my son.
Of course. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, I love that. Now, you've been very generous with a gift for our audience, and it's a six-figure success mindset mini course.
Yes,
Can you share what that is? And then the link will be on this page. And if anyone has any trouble finding the link, I will make sure they get it.
so what I love about this is I kind of start to walk people through my process of journaling and those daily habits, especially if you're somebody that's accustomed to like just doing, and not tapping into that internal piece and not tapping into that wealth from within. So it's 6 days where you get just like a mini lesson, a little audio, and a workbook where I walk you through the entire process of how to commit to those daily habits, how to journal, how to start manifesting things in your business, how to start calling in those ideal clients. And also the other thing I love about this, and I love about what you're doing in general, is it's very practical. It's very practical and grounded. I think sometimes when people think about mindset, they think like super woo, airy fairy, not grounded, like I don't get this, right? Or it's on the other side where it's like super scientific, super psychological, like so I really ground my mindset practices and how I teach in like the day-to-day stuff, like stuff that's actually happening for you, the challenges that you're actually going through, and how to solve those problems on your own, and how to create habits so that way when things come up, you automatically know what to do.
Yeah. Wow. That's valuable. That sounds like a great gift. So I hope that everybody takes advantage of that. And there's no question that having the support to walk you through, especially if you want to get started on the journaling and you think that might be something that can support you, to go ahead and take free coaching on it and through a gift. Why not? Right. I'm always, if it's free and it's good, why not? I love that. So thank you so much for your generosity and your time, and for sharing on the Wealth Warrior Summit. This has been a really great, informative interview with so much content.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.